Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk about Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus Zaleski dos Santos. It's good to see Zaleski back. Zaleski's now 36 years old, got a record of 23-7, and I think he has the same height and reach as 33-year-old Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov has a record of 17-3. Zaleski, let's start with him. He's had an incredible winning streak in the UFC. I forget what it was. I think it was 7 wins though. But he's had some really high moments, and then he's had some layoffs, some injuries, and whatever. And as of late, he's had some tough setbacks. He suffered his first and only knockout loss somewhat recently to Liang. Lee, who is one of the hardest hitting welterweights, maybe the hardest hitting welterweight. There's no shame in your chin failing to that. But as you get older, now he's on the wrong side of 35, long layoffs, a lot of mileage, 30-plus fights now. This shit could start to add up. So, there's a potential weakness there, but I can't write him off as having a weak chin because Liang knocked him out. And I will say this, if he doesn't have a weak chin, I expect him to be getting the better of the stand-up against Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov's a good striker, but he's not a great striker. Zaleski's at least halfway to being a great striker, and he's definitely much more diverse. We've seen him get big wins. That Sean Strickland spinning back kick, hook kick, wheel kick shit. That was phenomenal. He's got three submissions in his 23 wins. He's not the most versatile guy, but I do think he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I have that in my head anyway. Either way, he was good enough to get Curtis Millender out of there with a rear naked choke. Zaleski, one thing I really like about him, historically anyway, is he's got good cardio. Good enough cardio. In the majority of the round threes he's been in, he's the guy leading the dance. The majority of them. And it's helped him get some big decisions along the way. In this fight, though, I do think he's going to be fighting a wrestler in Nurmagomedov. Abubakar Nurmagomedov is not always inclined to wrestle, but in this matchup, I'm thinking he's going to be inclined to wrestle. And that does give me cause for concern because Zaleski dos Santos has been taken down plenty of times. Benoit Saint-Denis got him down, Liang, Keita Nakamura, Omari Akhmedov, Nicholas Dalby. Some really good grapplers there. And Zaleski doesn't always fight grapplers. And again, even in this matchup, I don't know if Nurmagomedov's considered a striker or a grappler, but I know he can do both. And he better live up to that name because I think here he's going to want to take Zaleski down. Abubakar Nurmagomedov, he's got a record of 17-3-1. Fucking PFL with the draws. And the one draw he had was the Bohan Velikovic or whatever, the former UFC fighter. Bohan. The 17-3 record, though. 17 wins, 6 by knockout, 4 by submission, 7 by decision. So it's spread pretty evenly there. And the 3 losses are all by finish. One doesn't count. It's a TKO due to a cut, and it's like 10 years ago. And it's also to an excellent fighter in Magomed Mustafayev, wherever the fuck he went. And the 2 submission losses are both at a high level. One in the UFC, his debut to David Zavada, got him with a triangle choke. And one in the PFL, the Pavel Kush, who got him with a rear naked choke after dropping him. Abubakar Nurmagomedov, he looked good in that fight on the feet. Definitely leading the dance, doing very well, but then he got clipped. And I do worry overall about his, vulnerability, survivability, or lack thereof. Again, he's been finished in his only 2 legitimate losses. Both are by submission, but certainly the chin got the ball rolling in that Pavel Kush fight. And while he's never been knocked out legitimately, and, hasn't been knocked around too much since then, I do expect Zaleski to have a distinct advantage on the feet here. So if he's not able to get Zaleski to the ground, and if Zaleski doesn't have a weak chin that's just, turned to shit and dissipated over the last however many months, I do think he's going to be up against it on the feet, and he's going to be forced to try to get this fight to the ground. Nurmagomedov's had some good wins. The Jared Gooden win, he looked really good, but that's Jared Gooden. Zaleski is a higher class striker. He's got he's a much more dangerous guy and much more versatile. You got to worry about everything, punches and kicks with this guy. Now, I'm not trying to shit on Jared Gooden or anything. Gooden's a good fighter too, but Zaleski should definitely have an advantage on the feet here. Abubakar, though, I do trust his wrestling. I think he could get Zaleski to the ground. The guys that got him to the ground, those are some good fighters, but I do think Nurmagomedov's got the pedigree to get him there. We've seen him bully fighters on the ground, even in the PFL days, but even recently against Gaji Omogajiev, his last fight in the UFC. In the PFL, he worked Matt Secor, who was all over submission attempts. That guy's like a pure submission artist. But Nurmagomedov shucked every submission off and just won with top position. Got that guy Frinku, whatever his name is, out of there in round 2. Nurmagomedov's a very good ground fighter when he wants to fight on the ground. And I do think here he's going to be forced to, and I think he's going to get it done. I'm picking Abubakar Nurmagomedov to beat Zaleski dos Santos. On the feet, I think he's good enough to survive, but not really to do much unless Zaleski's compromised. On the ground, I think he's, I don't think he's good enough to submit Zaleski, even though Zaleski's been submitted twice. He's been submitted twice to good fighters before he got to the UFC. Or, at least one before he got to the UFC, and then one in, I believe. But Nurmagomedov, he is good enough to control him on the ground. That's what I think. If he's able to take him down, he's able to control him. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I expect a close fight, both guys that have their moments, but more control time for Abubakar, and he walks away with the decision. His money line is -115. I have played that. Both their money lines are -115. It's a toss-up. And I'm picking Nurmagomedov, so I'm betting on him. And the decision line is +120. That's close enough where, even though that's my pick, I'm not betting on that. Because, again, anything can happen. We've seen chins fail and whatever else. So, I like Abubakar Nurmagomedov to win. I don't love him, but I like him enough to bet on his money line. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.